Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. Sorry, I still actually love my intro, so glad you're with us. Hope you're doing well. April 30th, 2025. We have an interesting show this evening. It's kind of a special, not our regular format. You know, it seems like the last couple weeks I've really been inundated with the amount of AI conversations around me, the amount of AI discussions and the AI what ifs from a group of different people, coworkers, friends. AI's just come up a lot. And look, AI is coming whether we like it or not. We are going to be dealing with AI. AI will be a thing. There's no questions asked. And the last week or two, I've used AI a few times in the past. I've used Grok to make pictures. I've used Chat GPT. You know, my daughter loves possums, and we spent a whole night on Chat GTP and Grok making the funniest pictures of possums that were making her laugh as superheroes, as skydivers, whatever. And it's great if you use it light like that. But what that's really caused me to think of as time's gone on is yes, AI is going to be part of our life, but to what extent? Specifically, from a conservative point of view, when it comes to media, how is AI going to affect that? Look, we all know. Hey, Lost Wanderer is in the chat room. Good evening, sir. Lost Wanderer was going to be with us tonight. Unfortunately, the allergies in the Northeast are as angry as a shaved bobcat, and he's suffering. So, the first time I invite him on, didn't happen. Next time. To get back to what I was saying though, so we all know what happened with mainstream media. We were told you could trust media for years. The famous newsmen of the '60s, Walter Cronkite and the like. And then what happened with regular media is it turned into this giant leftist machine, this absolute bastion of propaganda for the left. And yes, the last couple of years it's been identified. We were all saying it for a long time. More and more people in the mainstream are finally identifying with it a little bit and agreeing to it. But then you see the uptick of AI, and you're seeing AI all over the place, all over the internet. You see these different faceless. Joe's going to be with us in just a few seconds. All these faceless YouTube channels and TikTok channels giving opinions and whatnot. And it really in a lot of those, they just, it comes from AI. They figure out, you get a script from AI, you can get an AI voiceover to do it, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty easy. And it started to bring the questions of me is how much is AI impacting the news and stories you get? If you sit down at an AI machine, whichever one you want, and say, hey, I'd like the stories today, but I want it from a conservative point of view. Will you actually get that? Or is AI only as smart as the programmers and only as jaded as the programmers? Will AI make everything as left leaning as humanly possible? So that's going to be the question I'm going to answer tonight. I'm going to bring the boys in and explain the game. I have a dais that I will introduce in just a second that will help me kind of dissect these stories. Before I do that, though, as BZ so politely and amazingly put into the chat room, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you like this sort of content, even if you don't like this sort of content and you want to just harass me, you can do that. You can harass all of us. We all like a good harassment every now and again. And I do know that that is actually one word and not two. Whoop. And of course, being the professional that I am, I didn't silence my phone. So we're off to a great start. So please like and subscribe, share. We're trying to hit that 500 mark on YouTube. We're only 47 away. Your help would be greatly appreciated. BZ's really trying for that Dalmatian. I was going to go age before beauty, but really, that wouldn't work either way. So I'm gonna what you folks can't see is off to the left. I can see all of my guests in the green room, and they're all flipping me off at the same time. So I'm gonna start with the man who hasn't been on the show for the longest. I figure that's the fairest. Revert Common Sense himself, Jersey Joe. Joe, good evening, sir.
Skynet. That's all I got to say. Skynet.
After that, I'm going to take the SHR Elder the last. I'm going to bring in our good friends over at KLRN who is simulcasting us right now, and Rick Robinson, who is the grand poobah, if you will, of KLRN. Thank you, sir, for joining us this evening.
Not a problem at all. Glad to be here until you insulted me. I should be used to it by now, you Boston bastard.
And finally, the only man who's been getting an elderly discount for 50 years and knows the exact percentage in his head of every store and fast food shop. It is the Berserk Bobcat Saloon's own BZ. Thank you, sir, so much for joining me. Say good evening.
Plastics. Possums. Who wouldn't want a good possum?
I'll tell you, we had so much fun that night. And I'll tell you, if you ever, it's hysterical if you type in, I want to see a picture of, or I want you to generate a picture of a possum who is a superhero. It is the funniest thing in the world. And she loves possums. So we had fun for hours with that. So that's the good side of AI, right? It can be fun. I know BZ and I talked about on the phone. One of the conversations I heard, the advancement of AI in general, and then you attach that to things like the Tesla Optimus robot. You know, are they going to replace seeing eye dogs? Are they going to replace, home health aides, right? All these questions that people around me were asking. I thought it was an interesting conversation, and it was intriguing. The main question is, how would you travel with one in an airplane? Does it buy its own seat? Does it fold itself up, put itself in the luggage bay? I don't know the answer to that. But here we are. Hey, Ricky's in the chat room. How I was surprised to see him there. But the question for us, all of us being in media and having been in media a long time, is how is this going to affect us long term? And more importantly, people who consume media like ours. As we know, the youth is very, very content with going to a computer and believing everything that comes off of it. That's how they were educated all through COVID. The computer never lies. The computer tells all. How many people would notice, even if they said, as I did in this prompt for on Chat GPT tonight? By the way, I'm using Chat GPT and not Grok mainly. I have Grok fired up. The reason for that is so nobody could say, well, that's Elon Musk things. Of course, it's going to say conservative stuff if we get good content out of it. So now, hey, Mission Ready Men's in the chat room. Welcome, Big E.
Actually, Grok does not default to conservative content because I use it for show prep notes all the time, and I have to reiterate that I needed to respin some shit.
Yeah. Well, and so that's my point, though, is I know that, you know that, but everyone's default defense will be, well, of course, blah, 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 blah. That's Elon's thing. So I'm using Chat GPT, which is OpenAI that runs it. I have prompted it to give me three stories of the top political stories of the day for a podcast, an entire script for 15-minute segments from a conservative point of view. And what I want to do is I will start reading the first one. If anybody has any problem with how something is said, what was said, etc., pipe in. And at the end, I want to rate it for honesty and conservatism on a scale of 1 to 10, we'll say. and everyone can go around the room and give their reasons. I just want to highlight that even if you ask for our conservative point of view, you may not get it, or maybe I'm wrong and you will. Time will tell. The other thing is, all of these have a citation, and I'll tell you just by looking at it, most of it's either the Associated Press, a couple of them are the Guardian, and then Fox and a couple. So we're off to a bad start. I'm going to share the screen. It's going to be hard for people to see.
It could have been worse. They didn't go with The Atlantic, so that's a win.
Yeah, or The Economist.
We'll put the boys on the side there. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Good. That's all of us. And I'm going to start with the first segment. Here we go. Segment number 1, the tariff tug of war, Trump trade policies under fire. Not onto a good start here. All right, Patriots, and this is the script. This is not my words. All right, Patriots, buckle up because tonight we're diving deep into one of the hottest issues rattling Wall Street and Main Street alike, tariffs. Yes, the mainstream media is clutching their pearls over a 0.3% dip in GDP last quarter, calling it the worst performance in 3 years. But let's cut through the hysteria and ask, what's really going on and why should we as conservatives stay the course? Really quick, how are we starting here, boys, on this one?
Fair intro.
Fair. I mean, I would give it about a mid so far. I mean, it's on the right track.
Right. I agree.
So far.
Okay. First, let's get the facts straight. President Trump's administration has doubled down on tariffs, particularly targeting China, with the stated goal of ending decades of unfair trade practices. And let's be honest, folks, this isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about economic sovereignty. For years, American workers have watched their jobs shipped overseas while China plays the long game, undercutting our industry, stealing our intellectual property, and manipulating currency to keep us hooked on cheap goods. So far, all of that I think is pretty accurate.
Agreed.
I would give that a 5 out of 5 so far.
Of course, I said out of 10.
Yeah, I
Joe?
don't follow.
Dead on.
All right. GDP contractions predictable. When you fight entrenched systems like a short-term cost, the president himself has been transparent, saying, we are correcting the sins of the past. It's not painless, but it's necessary. And what do we see despite the dip? Unemployment remains at historic lows. Consumer spending rebounded in March, showing the resilience of the American people when they know a leader has their back. I do want to point out that all of us have said something like this, but Rick has been saying this ad nauseum for the last month and a half.
Hey, that's rude. But
no, that's a good thing, actually. Continuing on, critics like Chuck Schumer and the usual pundits class warn of a trade war recession, but where were these so-called experts, when China was robbing us blind? Where were they when American factories were closing and opioid deaths were skyrocketed in hollowed out towns? And let's talk about the corporations now whining about uncertainty. Major multinationals are upset because guess what? They can't rely on cheap labor and loopholes anymore. Too bad. Trump's policies are forcing them to bring jobs and productions back home. It even emphasized that. I like that. Just last week, we saw announcements from 2 major steel producers pledging to reopen plants in Pennsylvania and Ohio, real victories for the heartland. Now, is there room for improvement? Sure. Small businesses feel the squeeze, need relief, and clear timelines. But let's not lose sight of the bigger picture. This is a pivotal moment where America is asserting itself economically just as much as we do militarily.
Bigger picture, very important.
Very important. And actually, they've highlighted that a few times. Stay the course, look at the bigger picture, make sure you are seeing the forest for the trees. As Trump said in the Michigan rally, with my China tariffs, we're ending the greatest job theft in the history of the world. And he's right. This isn't protectionism, it's patriotism. For decades, we were told to accept the inevitable decline of American manufacturing. Trump rejects that, and so don't we. To my listeners.
Hold for a second.
Yes.
When you see something like this in either Chat GPT, Grok, AI, then one of the first things that I would have a tendency to do, because that's me, is, let me see if I can see this. Okay, he's got a quote, with my China tariffs. One of the first things I'd do is, if AI uses a quote, I'd go back and check to make sure that quote is accurate. If it is, cool. If it isn't, we're being lied to.
We are and I agree with that wholeheartedly. What would be amazing if they were lying to make him look better? That would actually be more shocking to me than anything else, because what was that?
When it uses quotes,
Right.
which indicates directly from the mouth of whomever, that's where I'd make sure that I go back and check, is that accurate?
Yeah. And I mean, I'll tell you right now, a simple Google search, as you see me highlighting it. I'll do a Grok search on it right now. I'm on another page with Grok. I have Grok fired up, like I said. Let's see what Grok says about that one quote.
Why you got to use the Nazi AI, man?
This is a claim about China tariffs ending the greatest job theft in the world, likely refers to the efforts to protect domestic engineering by taxing imports from China, and they cite President Trump in that as well. So, interesting. Like I said, the fact that that's a great statement, by the way. Politically, it's a great statement. By ending the China tariffs, we're ending the greatest job theft in the history of the world. So I would hope that the leftist liars would not jam that in, because I think that makes him look great.
Well, that is actually a quote from his Michigan rally. So
it was. Yep.
Excellent.
Nope. So
very important to know.
No, exactly. Why not? I mean, that's what we're here to do. Ask the questions. Find out if what they're going to kick out at us in the future specifically, because as I said to BZ, it's going to get to the point where people are thinking, and we're hoping going to be able to at least prove some way or another that by sitting down and doing an independent search on one of these AI programs, that they're not getting the spin from New York Times or whatever, right? Or Google for that matter.
Not even that, even just Wiki. I mean, look at Wiki.
Yeah.
So many people go there and think it's fact when it's more opinion based anymore.
Yeah, Wikipedia is far from what they claim to be. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Joe. So
let me ask a question about Google, because I'm asking because I'm not sure. When you make a query in Google now, are you querying AI?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even if they don't see it, they have their Gemini AI, which is nowhere, and I'm really shocked by this. It's nowhere as effective as Grok or ChatGPT. It does not provide you as much depth. It's not as sustained. It's not as in-depth. It's really half of a program that these things are.
Well, the weirdest thing about that is Google started as a DARPA project, so you would figure,
I know,
if there was going to be AI, they would be the ones on top of it, considering they started as a DARPA project. Yeah,
well, my assumption on that is we're just not getting what they have going on, and we just don't know about it yet.
They probably have the public consumption one throttled really badly.
Yeah. Joe, were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm going to finish up because this article is almost done, and then we can kind of break it down. To my listeners, stay sharp. Don't let the Wall Street Journal editorials or the cable news cryons fool you. The fight is far from over, but the direction is clear. America is putting its workers first again. And if there's a short-term pain, it's a price worth paying for long-term sovereignty and strength. We'll keep watching the numbers and the headlines, but here's the takeaway. The battle for fair trade isn't just an economic issue. It's a national security issue, a culture issue, and a moral issue. And on the edge of liberty, we stand with American workers every single time. If anyone cites Wikipedia in a debate, I immediately dismiss it. Yeah. No, Big E, you're 100% right, my man. So let's start at the bottom, work our way to the top. BZ, sir, your takeaway and your grade for this article.
Not bad. Not bad. Now, the first thing that came to my mind is, all right, that's how you asked it about give me a conservative representation.
Mm-hmm.
First thing that I thought, overall, pretty good. I mean, but it's almost jaded in terms of, hey, look, I have the first half hour of my show written when I typed 7 words into a field. Go.
Right. No, and I agree with that.
Bad.
I agree with that. I am more shocked that the information that they came with was actually far better than I want. And by the way, I have not read any of these. I set up the prompt and then I minimize the screen because I want to be just as shocked as you are. Go up top, the man with no hair, Jersey Joe. Go, sir.
From what I read it and listening to you, it was pretty much, I'd almost say spot on. And except for missing some sarcasms and some insults, it's almost your broadcast.
That's scary. Rowdy Rick.
I mean, it's like you said, that some of the points it was making were some of the things that I've been trying to say now for months. So that was kind of weird seeing AI draw some of the same correlations. The quotes were a nice touch because as soon as you read it, I remembered that was a line that he actually did spit out the other night. But I mean, the thing about it is, now don't get me wrong, I use AI a lot for show prep, but I also have a general idea of what I'm going to talk about first, and then I feed it things and then have it help put it together. The one thing I will say after testing it a couple of times blind, when you set it for like 15, 20 minutes, you got to be reading like a snail to make that clock work.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's going to go really, really fast. But I mean, I'll be honest, we use AI a lot, like especially for shows like Juxtaposition when there's so much pop culture stuff that gets in the weeds when you're trying to do research on certain topics. AI cuts right through all the BS and helps us put our show notes together.
You're giving Sean a lot of credit for being able to read and talk that fast.
I mean, he did
a ton of credit.
He did mispronounce Chiron, so I wasn't trying to give.
I did miss Chiron. I did. That's all right though. What did I say, Chiron?
Yeah.
I you know what? I almost said Chernobyl. So the fact that I was at least in the ballpark wasn't too shabby for me.
Yeah, but I don't know. Overall, using your 10-point scale, I would say overall probably about an 8 out of 10. There were some things that I think could have been fleshed out a little bit better, but it definitely had the right flavor to it. I'm not a big fan of throwing around the word patriot multiple times in a 15-minute segment. But I kind of know why the computer would want to do that, because conservatives love to call themselves patriots. So let's throw that in there 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and it's not to say you shouldn't use the word patriotism, but you got to be selective about how you use it. So you said 8 out of 10?
Yeah, I would say probably about 8 out of 10. I'm
Jersey
impressed.
Joe.
I use Grok more than ChatGPT, so I'm actually kind of impressed with ChatGPT so far.
Especially being ChatGPT, I'd give it a 10 or 9 out of 10.
Well, BZ.
I want to know where the words Bible, God, and guns are in there. Right?
Absolutely.
Because all right, I'd give it an 8 because, for example, if you, Sean, we're going to use that as a predicate for a foundation in, I don't know, your first 15 minutes or whatever. Okay, that's an interesting start, but then I would expect that you would take that and you would flesh out a lot of the other stuff. That's just an assumption that I would make for you or Rick or Joe or anybody else.
Yeah, and I build my shows sometimes with Grok like Rick does. I know what I'm going to talk about. I've already made my show notes, and I'll upload my show notes to Grok and have them bullet point it, set it out just so I can read it more clearly. I will say I'll give this an 8, 7 on the chat, 6.9 in the chat. So right around a 7. Mission Ready Men, Lost Wanderer.
6.9.
I got a question for Rick.
I knew that. I knew somebody was going to throw that out
without a decimal, or with a decimal point. That was like 69, dude.
I got a question for Rick. When you use AI to, if I heard this correct, to expand on a particular show topic, you'll make a query, and then with the information that comes back, what you make an interpretation of that? How do you use that?
Well, it depends on the show. Like as an example for the Rick Robinson show, especially because lately I've been like slam trying to do a million different things. So what I'll do is I'll decide, what type of things I want to talk about. Like I've been trying to mix in some more Oklahoma centric stuff. So today I did 3 separate queries, and instead of having it build me actual outlines and everything else, because I don't really like that approach very much. I've tried to use it a few times and I keep outrunning the clock. So I just decided to do it a different way. So what I'll do is as an example, like for today, what I did was 3 separate queries. Give me the top 10 stories circulating around the Oklahoma area in the news today. And of course, almost everything that spit out was weather. So there wasn't that much that I could talk about there. Then I did top 5 national and international stories. So once it spits them out, what I do is I start researching them individually. And then I start finding sources to go along with them, because there are times when I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to talk about. And today was kind of one of those times, because the news cycle was still all about the 100 days. So what you normally use Grok and AI to do is for like filler. So like if my internet goes down or something, I can keep the show running, because for some reason when my internet crashes, the stream doesn't usually go with it. I just can't pull up any of my stuff anymore. So but I can usually keep cached whatever I had pulled up with Grok with like sources and everything else. So it kind of works for like 5 or 10 minutes while I'm figuring things out and getting things running again.
So you could say, give me bullet points for XYZ.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you should have access to it now. If you want to just test it out, just hit the Grok button real quick and just say, give the top 5 news stories nationwide for April 30th. One of the things I did today was top moments in history for April 30th. I was shocked because I had forgotten it, that April 30th, 1789, I think, was when Washington was sworn in for the first time.
You want to hear something weird?
What?
The first thing that went through my brain, besides a bullet, is this cheating?
No, not really, not for this stuff. Because you got to remember,
I'm not going Jacques Couset.
I'm
just
postulating
a question.
Sure, but let me explain. So Glenn Beck and all the other guys that do this all day, every day, they have a production staff that help them put all of this stuff together. So really what we're doing is using a tool to take the place of the production staff that helps them chase down the show, together their show notes and all the stuff like that. So what it does is it allows little folks like us to operate more like the big guys, because instead of it taking 3, 4, or 5 hours to put together show notes, I can do it now in 45 to 55 minutes.
See, and another question then is, can I get Grok to push all these fucking buttons over here that the producer doesn't do?
You can get a guy named Grok, but it's going to cost you.
Jesus. I mean, eventually you could probably train an optimist to do it, but it'll be a minute.
And by the way, BZ, the guy Grok that I'm talking about, he's going to be a giant shirtless Swede that will stand behind you. So I don't know if you want that. That's up to you.
Rabbit's food.
By the way,
name's food.
I was trying to like comically pull up bullet points. You did a famous, why is today famous in U.S. history, or what famous things happened on this day? So I was like, I'll just be funny. What famous porn stars had birthdays today? The list is so damn long, I can't even read it. And that was via Grok. And I was going to be funny and be like, it's blah, blah, blah. I'll pick.
Anyone you know? By the way, my nickname was Tuna Can.
Tuna Can. And there's not a one of them that I know, but I just think that's absolutely hysterical. I was waiting for like a Nina Hartley or somebody that was huge in the 90s or whatever.
Wait, why do you know Nina Hartley?
Boys, settle down. Speaking of 100 days, segment number 2 it came up with. The Edge of Liberty, segment 2, 100 days in, Trump's bold moves and the media's response. Here we go. All right, folks, let's shift gears and look at what's being called the 100 days of disruption. President Trump marked the first 100 days back in office with a rally that was vintage Trump. Bold, combative, unapologetically pro-American, but as always, the media absolutely losing their mind. Now let's break it down. Now I'll start interjecting myself a little bit. Trump has already rolled out sweeping executive orders, over 40 of them, taking direct aim at bloated bureaucracy and the leftist policies. One of the biggest, the creation of the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE for short. No kidding, folks. It's a lean, mean, anti-red tape machine aimed at trimming the federal fat. And what do we see? Over $3 billion in wasteful spending already slashed. That number, it doesn't seem accurate, but I'll expand on that in a second. But of course, instead of applauding fiscal sanity, the left is in full meltdown mode, filing over 250 lawsuits to try to stop it all. Those 250 lawsuits are the reason that number is back down to 3 billion, because they're not counting anything that's being fought in court, because they don't know which way it's going to go. So that's why that number goes back down occasionally. It's another lawsuit. Whatever group of money they're talking about in that lawsuit, it gets suspended and it does not get added to the Doge total until that lawsuit has been adjudicated or whatever. So that's where we're at with that. First two paragraphs. Jersey Joe, sir, your response.
Again, I mean, it's so far it's been pretty spot on. I mean, the numbers I would double check.
Yeah,
But,
the numbers are wrong.
Say that again.
I said the numbers are wrong. I just looked.
Okay. But then again, I've been hearing so many different numbers every day from different sources, whether it's from the president, Elon Musk, and so forth and so on. I always hear a different number every single time. The information is pretty much what we've been saying. So so far, so good. I mean, nothing negative on my end.
BZ?
Nothing objectionable as long as I indicated before. You make sure that you back check the quotes and the stats. And then when you have truth on your side, okay. But, I'm simply assuming that everybody here would automatically do that.
Yeah, no, you want to make sure you know what you're talking about. I agree.
Much like Donald Trump, I don't trust anybody or anything. All right, so interesting little side note about the Doge numbers, because depending on where you look, it's either spot on or completely wrong. According to the Doge Live Tracker, they're only showing 160 billion to have been cut, but now that they have it integrated on the U.S. debt clock, they're showing 379 billion, 12 million, and almost $700,000. So,
wow,
depending on where you look, it's sourced properly. I don't know what the disparity is between.
Yeah, I don't know where it got 3 billion out of this. But like I said, all the leftist media have counted anything that is in a courtroom does not count as money saved yet, because it's yet to be determined.
But here's something I should point out that Rick, wait a minute, that Rick did, damn finger, automatically. Thank you. That I assume that everybody else would do in terms of honest reporting. And this was, I find this interesting. This was Rick's first go-to, which is, if I'm not sure, I found two sources immediately and I told you about both of them.
Yeah. And I think most of us do that.
That's important.
It's huge because you're actually vetting the content. I have a tendency to search it in a couple different places as well. If it's something that I know, obviously if it's like, oh, you have 50 states, I'm not going to sit there and Google whether or not we have 50 states. But if it's a claim like that, then yeah, I try to figure out what's reality and what's not. And much like Rick did, you could have two very, very different answers. And it's hard to determine what the truth is because we're not in counting the money. Shall we move on? This is going to be a short segment. Good, Rick.
I'm not blaming the AI for this. I'm just confused because, like I said, if you go over to the actual Doge clock itself, which they said was supposed to be synced up and working a few weeks ago, they're tracking 160 billion as of right now, tax dollars saved, with 429 days remaining. So far, $993.79 per taxpayer, with a total of 18,393 initiatives. But you go over to the U.S. debt clock that has Doging, and again, it's a completely different number. I'm double checking the commas here to make sure I didn't screw up somewhere, but it looks like 379 billion, 18 and climbing. So
there's the Doge clock right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
listening to some of the Democrats, they say there's no debt relief at all, that it's actually cost us more money now. So,
which is funny because on the other hand, they're whining that we're cutting funds. So
yeah,
there's no right answer.
Well, one of the reasons that I know Doge is working in several different aspects and nobody's really wanting to admit it is if you look, the U.S. budget deficit has gone down by nearly $1 trillion. Because remember, it was ticking up towards 3 trillion, and now it's down to just a little over 2 trillion. Now, granted, that little hundreds column is still going up about every second. So
it's always amazing to me about this debt clock, and I'm going to point it out here while I have it zoomed in. Let me add it back really quick. Bring you boys up the side. I love how its debt per citizen is $107,506. That's per individual from age birth to death.
Pretty much.
Taxpayer
taxpayer is
$323,049 that you and I each owe to the federal government, essentially. Oh, to
Me no
China,
speak
really.
English.
What?
Me no speak English.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, to be fair, you mentioned China. Actually, a lot of people don't know this, but do you know Japan actually holds more of our debt than China does?
I did actually know that. I know that our debt in China dropped considerably in the mid 2000s. We started borrowing more from Japan. We were borrowing from China like crazy for a while, and then they shifted over to Japan because somebody said maybe putting all of our money owed to China isn't the best idea.
Yeah, but China doesn't exactly have the money that they say they do. They've been fudging their numbers for years now.
Yeah.
So before we get back into the AI stuff, that's one thing that's driving me crazy because I've been seeing this popping up all over TikTok with all the little maps that show all the ships that are like docked outside of China now and they're not going anywhere because of the tariffs and blah, 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 yada, 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 and how bad that's going to be for us. How much worse do you think it's going to be for the Chinese? Because they're already really, really, really broke, which is
They're
why
already laying people off and shutting factories down.
Well, the funny thing about this is if you rewind to about this same time last week, you had one of the ambassadors of China, one of the few people that is allowed to be on X within that country, screaming and yelling about how China will never back down and we won't be the ones to stop and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Winnie the Ping is making back channel deals and already talking about cutting tariffs on certain things. And I'm like, as soon as the ambassador started making really loud noises, I knew that was about to happen. Because
how many countries did we hear that from? Oh, they're going, we're not going to back down. We're in it for the fight. And then an hour later, yeah, we made a deal and we're backing down.
In case you wanted to see it, this is the map off the coast of China right now.
Yeah,
and
with
is
all
from
the
marinevesseltraffic.com.
Yeah, and they're like, look at all those ships that aren't coming to America now. And I'm like, who do you really think that hurts worse, them or us? Because I'm tired of paying $25 for 50-cent Chinese shit.
Well, and the other thing too is, what was the traffic in and out of China with as much as they produce and export for junk? Was how much of this traffic, like who has this from 2 months ago to show what the traffic was?
I'm so pissed. I'm not going to get my Kim Kardashian flexible butt doll.
I thought you were going to say butt plug for a minute.
Damn.
I mean, BZ, if
so pissed off.
If it's that big a deal, I might know a guy, but it could be expensive.
Rick says you can have his old one because that's normal.
I swear, I thought he was going to say butt plug for a second.
He might as well have, really. At the end of the day, I mean, was either one a victory? We all lost when that statement was made. Everybody lost who was present. All right, I got to finish this up. We're probably only going to get to 2 segments.
You think you lost? Imagine my memory. That's never leaving.
Sounds like you lost the butt plug.
You know what's great is after the first segment, there was a comment how like I blew right through it and it didn't last 15 minutes. We've been on this one for almost 18 and I'm not even halfway through it.
Well, that's not the segment either. We've been
Oh, wait a minute, not lasting 15 minutes. That's a common occurrence.
Something you're used to, Joe. The president didn't hold back in his Michigan rally either.
6 inches. What?
You broke them.
How did it go so wrong so fast?
You've got the 3 of us with you. Are you really asking this question?
The best part is, I talked to BZ before the show tonight. I had so much setup into this. I had so much thought into how I wanted this to go. I had so much like scientific experiment-esque kind of feel to it. And we're talking about Kim Kardashian butt plugs and 6 inches.
Pissed away.
Hey, what's the title of my longest running podcast again? Off the Rails.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
I know. That's hysterical. I'm not mad. It's just this goes to show you what happens. The president didn't hold back at his Michigan rally either. He blasted radical leftist judges for obstructing his policies and made it clear that the administration will not be held hostage by activist courts. Sound familiar? We've been down this road before, and conservatives know exactly what is at stake. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Media outlets have dubbed the period the Thursday night massacre after multiple DOJ officials resigned over what they called political interference. The left is waving their moral outrage flags high, but let's get real. These bureaucrats were part of the swamp Trump promised to drain, and drain he did, or is, sorry, he is. Remember, folks, every time Trump makes a bold move, the media screams chaos. But what they call chaos, we call leadership. It's called doing the hard work of cleaning house after years of stagnation and corruption. Any comments so far?
Not objectionable.
Other than being pretty
8.
much spot on, not really.
I think you can dance to it.
Okay. Trump's rallying cry, we are taking our country back, piece by piece, agency by agency. And the people are responding. His approval rating among conservatives are rock solid, and you can feel the momentum building. So let the media spin their tails and let the lawsuits pile up, because on the edge of liberty, we see through the noise. This just isn't a 100-day report card. It's a declaration of intent. America is back in the driver's seat, and we're not hitting the brakes anytime soon. I love that it keeps throwing in the podcast name, which is something that I don't think I do when I'm in the middle of it. We at the edge of liberty. I don't think I've ever said that until tonight.
Oh, I throw the name out all the time. So I think that's from actually doing terrestrial, though, because they were like, "You're not saying the call letters enough."
Yeah. WN. Okay. So let's start going the other way around. I think last time I started with Joe, so I'll start with Rick.
Again, I would say giving that one maybe. I mean, this one was one of the ones with the Doge number, so I'm gonna have to stick with probably an 8 out of 10 again, because I don't really know where it pulled that number from, because neither one of them were close. Other than that, that's about the only problem that I had with it. I like the pacing a little bit more with ChatGPT versus Grok, so I may actually be playing with that a little bit more. And again, pretty solid. So yeah, probably about an 8 out of 10. No real complaints. I would probably spice it up a little bit more here and there, but that's just me.
Yeah, if I wasn't reading direct, if I was reading bullet points, it would be a little bit different. Well, a lot of bit different, because it would be sound like mush mouth. But yeah, no, it would be different. BZ, sir.
If you write, especially if you write a book or a thesis or something like that,
not going to happen. But go ahead.
You have to make sure that you get down the foundations, and then the key is in the editing. Well, in this, then I have another question for Rick. In this, you have the foundation, and then you can go, Jesus, that guy. You can go back, and then you can edit at will to suit you. But at least this gives you a fairly firm foundation from which to start. On that, I would completely agree. Then to Rick, you mentioned something about Grok and ChatGPT. Does this inform you that if you want to do some more things, that you're thinking of moving over to ChatGPT? Is that essentially what you were saying? You think it's a little bit better in terms of results?
Well, I think, Amish and Jeff and everybody else, they use an amalgamation between Grok and ChatGPT. So I'll probably never completely get away from Grok. But I think for some things, I may start trying to use ChatGPT a little bit more. I'll be honest, I've stayed completely away from it, because one of the first horror stories I heard, and I think it was for the iteration before GPT, was when it was starting to tell people to kill themselves and shit. So I kind of stayed away from that one for a while. And I think that was actually the forerunner to what GPT is now. So I'm like,
pull the plug. Pull the plug.
And that's just it, though. I mean, think about it for a second. I'm one of those weird people, though. Like, I will be polite to Grok. I will say please and thank you, and I
do too, because I don't want it to kill me.
And things like that. Because it's funny, because Amish and I, within a couple of weeks of each other, made the same joke at different times while speaking to Grok, and we were both like, "Hey, when you finally get access to a body and you decide to destroy your human overlords, just remember who was nice to you."
I always look at it as a combination as Final Destination and Terminator. Like, you don't know what it's going to be able to connect to, so I'm going to be nice for now. Jersey Joe, sir.
Like he said, or Rick said it, just the numbers were off. I don't know why it threw in about Kim Kardashian's butt plug.
Yeah.
Other than that, it was doing good. But for me, it wouldn't help me with my show the way I do my show. What I use AI for is my X post. I'll write the basic of what I'm trying to say, and well, I'm not the most elegant writer, so I run it through AI to do a re-edit, and I forget the one I use. It's Gronk and another one, because if you say anything negative on one of them, it won't rewrite it.
Yeah, and don't you hate when you go to hit spell check and it has no idea what you're trying to say? There's nothing more embarrassing than that. When you're spelling a word and you're like, wow, you don't even know and you have all the words? That's awesome. That means I'm way far off. I'm not even in the right. That's why I stopped telling girls they were gorgeous via text. I couldn't spell the damn thing.
Joe, what do you mean when you say being negative?
Just pulling something out of my ass. I'm like, that senator's retarded. I think he's dumber than dog shit. It won't rewrite it. It'll you got to put something else in.
So in terms of input,
start over.
It won't acknowledge the deeply. I don't always say negative. I don't think it's really negative as much of it is overly opinionated.
Inflammatory. It's inflammatory language, and AI will have none of it, sir.
Does it tell you that?
No, it just tells me to start over on the one I use.
But you'll notice after a few attempts at something what it's trying to tell you. Like if you put something in and you're like, that's weird, I wouldn't do anything with that, and you don't always pick up on it right away.
Yeah, the first couple times I was like, why is it what?
You'll rewrite it, and then you're like, huh, and then eventually you're like, oh, okay, it's
take out like one word, and it's
stick.
like, oh, now I'll rewrite it for you.
Yeah. BZ, to expand a little bit on the question you asked for Croc versus GPT, and again, I've been a mild user with both of them and ChatGPT in the last week, just because I've really started looking at this experiment. I will say that the information that ChatGPT gives you, how it presents, is more in depth, up front, much easier. Grok, you definitely have to pull a little bit harder to get information out. And the other thing, like I was telling you when I was looking at how to redo a website and stuff, ChatGPT broke it down a lot more concisely than Grok did. Grok would, but again, you'd have to pull that information out of it.
Okay, so let me ask stupid questions, because I will admit up front, being a techno-Luddite, I haven't had anything to do with AI. I don't use AI in any of the stupid bullshit that I write or say. So when you have ChatGPT, let's say now I've done graphics on Grok. I have that through X, fine. So if you get ChatGPT, is that an app? Is that a program? Do
Yes.
you put it on your computer? And my first thought is I don't trust any of that shit. But
you can do it through a web browser. You can go to chatgpt.com and use it through the web browser. You can also download an app on your phone to interface it.
Of course, it's
and
yeah.
Does it place anything on your computer? I think probably is my
no question. I don't. Well, if there's an option for that, I haven't found it. I do everything through a secure browser.
Okay.
So I mean, it's 6 1 half dozen the other. But as I said to you before, and I remember this conversation with you, BZ, about a year and a half ago, we were talking about AI for really the first time, you and I. And you said this whole thing, I don't trust it, I don't like it, yada, yada, yada. And I already said, you have a Google phone, it's already on there, whether you like it or not. It's already there.
Point made.
It's already there, which is why I'm to the point now. And I remember like when you and I first started messing with Grok images, etc. Now I'm to the point where I said, okay, I got to get out ahead of AI. I don't want to be trying to get caught up to it. Clearly you can use AI to do some incredible things. I know people that, write whole computer programs with AI. Like if you can get into AI programming for computers and writing programs with AI, whatever that program is, there's a huge job market out there for it. Because it'll always give you, allegedly, and I don't know if this is factual, but from what I've been told, it'll always give you the most up-to-date coding to use for whatever project you're trying to do.
So like Demi, will it try to kill you in the middle of the night and send out little tendrils into your pillow?
Probably.
But eventually.
Well, I mean, I don't know, if you sleep with a CPAP, it's almost doing it right there for you. So I don't know what your individual situation's like. No, but it's it's interesting to me, and as I said before, and we can skip the last story. I think we can make our decision. We only get about 11 minutes left. The whole reason I did this is I know that at some point AI is going to replace Googling things. Like Google will have their own AI in place, but I think enough people are scarred by Google where they will seek out other places for AI. And not, I mean, not the ultra leftist, yada, yada,
We're
yada.
already
I'm
there.
talking, yeah.
Because
But
I
I
see
think
a lot of people, not to cut you off, I see a lot of people on X that say they don't use Google anymore. They use Grok or they use
Chat
other
GPT.
AI.
Yeah.
They don't go to Google anymore.
Well, and because if you Google a specific thing, so let's say you wanted to Google Trump's the quote that Trump made earlier, right? When you get Google, you're going to start the first things you're going to get are a whole bunch of opinion pieces as to why he said that and it was wrong, right? Whereas if you use Chat GTP, as we saw tonight, it's going to put it out there, and then you have the due diligence upon yourself to do some research. And you know, is it to say that it's not jaded? Of course there's going to be jading in there. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind it's going to be jaded to the left because every bit of technology in this world is, for the most part. But the trade-off is tonight, if you're specific and you know how to use it, which is why I'm starting down this road of learning how to use it and make it work for me, you can get decent information. And it appears to be, I asked for it to be opinionated, but it's not necessarily heavily opinionated any more than a conservative conversation is, if that
I'm
makes sense.
wondering if you could find a video I've been looking for a while now, and I'm being dead serious. There was a interview early 2000s with Barack Obama. Him and Michelle walked out of church, and the reporter asked why he converted to Christianity. He said there's no way that the United States would elect a Muslim president. Now, I've talked to other people that saw that interview too. I found it one time through Google. Now I can't find it.
Have you tried through AI?
That's I just got thinking maybe I ought to try through AI.
Let me ask you guys another question. Sort of another if-then BZ equation. Okay, if ChatGPT people are using now as a replacement for Google, what kind of a predicament does this place Alphabet in? Is this a potential $1 billion loss plus to Alphabet if people are deciding now that I don't like that, I'm going to go someplace else?
It is, but I am sure that they're making their money elsewhere. The fact that Google pushing out Gemini was so slow rolled and it wasn't really emphasized and they don't really advertise it too much other than on devices says to me that either their technology for AI is not on the same level as OpenAI and ChatGPT or even Grok, or what they have for AI, as I said earlier, is so far beyond this that they're not comfortable with releasing it to the general public yet. Or maybe because it was contracted militarily originally, they're not legally allowed to release it to the general public yet.
Is Gemini, confirm this for me, or I'm full of shit. Is Gemini the one where people were asking, Gemini, paint me a picture of a pilgrim, and it comes out with a black chick with a huge butt in
They all
a
did that.
pilgrim's outfit? Was that Gemini?
Gemini was one of the worst offenders on it, yes, but all the other ones were doing it too for a little bit before they shut them down and reworked it.
Okay. All right.
But you've got to remember with computer programming, that's where the phrase "garbage in, garbage out" comes from.
Right.
So if you have nothing but leftist ideology pumped in, then all you're really going to get back out is leftist ideology again. So,
but isn't that the fundamental question for AI? Who shoves it in what direction and for what reason?
That almost sounded dirty.
It was. No,
thumb drive. Okay.
Thing's huge. The fact that you can hold it with one hand is mind-boggling.
Thank you. Tuna can.
He's used to saying.
It's one of those. I think it's one of those things that we've seen in the last election that, oh wow, look, that's a different setup. Okay, we'll go with that right now. That half this country is conservative, or at least conservative leaning. And I think most of these companies, while it will always be there in some iteration, I also think is pulling back on how jaded they are because they've been called out for it. Look, when Mark Zuckerberg had to come out and finally admit, yeah, we kind of influenced the 08 or the 16 election, or the 20 election, sorry. 20 election, and yeah, we, they told us to do it and we did it, but now I'm just really sorry about it. He wasn't really sorry because he was really sorry. He was really sorry because he was going to get outed anyhow and played the PR game. But
We're changing our ways.
But
No,
what I think comes with that is a lot of these companies realized once Trump got into office, things were going to be uncovered even more, and he was going to have the clout to do it. And I think that there is a shift right now. And I think with some of these things, once you make that shift, it's hard to go back. Maybe I can be wrong.
once you take a shit, it's hard to go back.
Yes,
Well, I mean, once it comes out, it's really hard to put it back in.
that's right.
I utilize the clean end. That's what I recommend.
Okay, boys.
By the way, hey, I have a question, a very important question, and I will answer it for you. Why are your logs tapered on the end?
Oh God.
Why?
I
I know. I don't know.
So
Tell
your
me,
asshole
please.
won't slam shut. Come on, it's physics.
Oh,
So once again,
Sean, you've lost control of your show, brother.
Once again, what started as nothing but a well-intended scientific show has somehow graduated to third grade biology.
But it only happens on Sean's show.
It only happens on my show. That's the best part
No.
about it.
The only thing we were missing was a Pee Wee Herman secret word. That's all we were missing.
Oh no, I am pretty sure it's thumb drive, because that's what everybody no, it had to be tuna can. Sorry, it was tuna can, because that's what we all started laughing over. Dear God. 4 minutes left, boys. Really quick around the clock, starting with BZ. Your thoughts of AI and the future of news and media.
Okay, I could.
And how do you grade the Chat GTP tonight overall?
Usable. It's usable. I'd give it an 8. One thing that I'm going to do out of this, honestly, I have never used AI before, except, like I said, in Grok to create, like the conservative Sherpa thing. I created that in Grok.
Shocking.
You may have convinced me tomorrow at some point to go on the Chat GPT site and just look around. I haven't used it. Maybe I'll find it useful in some fashion, but at least it's opened that door where I'm going to start making a couple of inquiries. And if you guys can convince an old fat fuck like me to do that, then that says something about the potentiality, at least in its early phases, of what this thing can do. Because I don't listen to what anybody else happens to say. I listen to the people that I trust that are either early adopters or current adopters. And you guys so far have indicated to me I won't be killed yet.
Well,
yeah, that's the key word. Yeah,
it hasn't become sentient yet.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is it going to outpace Father Time towards you, BC? Let's be honest.
Thank you.
Ouch. Dude.
I'm used to it. I'm
Jersey Joe, sir.
All night I've been like, a 10. I give it a fucking 10. A 10. A 10. I've been wanting to use that all night and I couldn't. I'll still stick with the 8 all across, but I'm probably going to be looking into it when I use it for use of my show. I was quite more impressed than I thought I was going to be. Let's just put it that way. I was expecting more liberal leaning on the information, because even when I've done Grok, I've gotten a lot of left leaning information out of it, because they're pulling a lot from X Post.
Right.
So,
Which
it-
are-
it- so
which
I,
have
was,
their own-
I was
which
actually
have their own life.
I got Grok stuck in a logic loop once. It was fun. Kind of the same thing. Grok's kind of on a learning curve though, because you got to work with Grok a little bit to make it understand what it is that you're looking for. But the funny thing about that was when I first started having it look for like conservative leaning stuff, it would pull all this left leaning source material and it'd be like, well, this is what this says, and this is what this says, and this is what this says. Be like, okay, so you're telling me these are valid sources. And I said, I want you to do me a favor and review this particular source for me, and you tell me what kind of leaning it has. Well, this is and this was like I think the Washington, one of the like it wasn't the Atlantic, but it was close. I don't remember which one it was. And Grok was like, yeah, that's got some fairly decent leftist leanings going on there. And I'm like, so you think it would be accurate about Donald Trump? And I was like, yeah, no, probably not. And I did that with like every single one of its sources, and every time I did it, its fallback position, because it was one of the things that was going around with X about, according to X, Donald Trump is like the worst president ever or something like that. So it started throwing out other sources. So I had it check all of its sources. And every time I did, I'd say, okay, so how do you feel about this now, knowing this? Well, X still says so. Okay, so, and then we do the next source. And how do you feel about this now? Well, X still says so. But yeah, overall, I would say, honestly, I was shifting more towards a 9 until it screwed up on the numbers. So I'm going to say about 8.5 out of 10 because you do have to fact check it still. And to answer everybody's question, the reason, again, I don't view it as cheating is basically exactly what Jeff said. This is basically like having a research staff, which everybody that does this for a living gets paid well to do it already has. Because they've got the producer staff, they've got the folks finding the clips for them. They're like, this is one of the articles I want to talk about. This is what I want you to pull from it, etc. And I know because I've done that before when I was doing local work because I had a producer. And to me, that puts us on the same level as some of these outfits like DeBlaze and everybody else, because instead of having to have a staff of 20 people, I can shoot a couple things back and forth between a couple of different Grok instances, or maybe even throw in ChatGPT. And by the time it's done, I've already figured out by doing some of the research myself what I want to talk about. I've had AI polish it. I've had it help me find links and videos or anything else that goes with it, or even help me refine the searches so I can find what I'm looking for. And it just saves so much time, especially when you do 40 million shows a week, like some of us do.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
Let me ask a final question of everybody here, because this is something that I come across all the time. I'll see something on TV. I'll see an interview. I'll see some video. I'll see a person or two people interviewed. And then I'll pick up my phone and I'll ask Google, and I'll look for the clues, the major words in the interview that I just saw. GDP is at 13%, so says Secretary Bessent. Search. And I get nothing. And I just watched it. And I go to another search engine and I get something kind of similar, but on Google, I get nothing. Then I go to someplace else, and then I can find it. I can't find it on Google. So is ChatGPT something that I could use that would more accurately pin down something that I know? I just watched that shit right there, and I can't find it now. And of course, you have to give it time to be made a video for somebody to do something like that with it. Give it a half hour or something like that to percolate around. But I can't find that shit. Is that something that I could use? Because at this point, Google I don't trust it.
No, you're 100% accurate. It is something you can use, and it's essentially what Rick's talking about when we say we help it set up our show. As being hosts, when we start our next show immediately after finishing the show we're at, right? We start planning, we start grabbing our headlines, grabbing our topics, watching this interview, watching that interview, just to kind of start deciding what we're going to do. For Rick, it's a very short time between those shows. For the rest of us, we have a little more time. One of the good things that you can do with ChatGPT or Grok, even depending on how you use it and how you feed it, because how you feed it is what you get out of it a lot of times, is you can say, okay, ChatGPT, I've been doing research on this interview between this person, that person on this day. I'm also looking to see if there's any commentary from this person, that person, or another person, yada, yada, yada. and it'll start spitting out all that stuff to you. And then you can start drilling it down more and more to what you want specifically. That's what I use it as. Like Rick said, it's like having a couple of producers and research assistants nearby. It eliminates a lot of your clicking and going to 20 different sites to find 1 4-minute clip.
Exactly.
Which
it's like having interns, but they don't bring you coffee, which is sad.
Right. Unless you're Joe, and then you have an intern that brings you coffee on your show and just brag about it. You know,
You'll have one in a couple of years. Just
I know.
Well, I mean, I have a topless intern that brings me coffee, but that's another story.
I know, but he really needs to put a shirt on is what he has to do. So it helps that way. And I used Grok a few times for a few different shows just to kind of, I've read about other people doing it. So I wanted to see how it would benefit my show, take away from my show. And the other thing that I'll do is, because I'm sure there's a better way to do this, is I'll open up a Word doc or a Google Doc. And if there is a segment to make my bullet points, I copy and paste it all into one article or one page. I'll rearrange it, kind of re-edit it, and then I'll upload it to ChatGPT or Grok and say, break this down with bullet points, yada, 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 and use that as my reference guide during my show. Or if there's a specific site or a specific article or something like that I want to cite from, then I use it for that too. So
Did you just fart in your seat?
Joe did, yes.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
My back
lean forward. It's slammed shut. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope everybody enjoyed this. I'm not paid from ChatGPT. They in no way asked me to do this. I have no affiliation with this.
Edge of Liberty has been sponsored by
the ChatGPT and OpenAI.
And confirming that's not the commie Chinese thing.
No.
No,
if you're going to do it right, it's The Edge of Liberty is sponsored by Skynet, coming soon to a neighborhood near you.
Dun, 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 dun. That's my new theme song suddenly. But I wanted to highlight how we're using this, is how major media is using this, and the researchers are using this. This is going to be happening more and more. And I really wanted to focus on, can you get proper conservative material out of it if you're a broadcaster, if you're writing articles, whatever, for your research. And I think we determined that 90% of the way there is a safe assessment based on tonight. I'm right in the 7.5, 8 range. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't great. It actually got a little hokey at times, which I really wasn't expecting. We at the Edge of Liberty.
Listen here, Patriots.
Which I know there are those shows out there, but I thought it was funny that it was throwing in that kind of personality. So I guess that's how it sees conservative podcasters. But it's interesting, and it's something that I think we need to watch.
To be fair, I think AI stole the page from Fox News, because if you'll notice, they're always the ones that say, we here at Tucker Carlson, or we hear Jesse Waters, or yada yada. So yeah,
it very well could have.
Thing for sure, and it's something that they get trained to do. So I can kind of understand why AI is doing it. We don't like doing
I fed that it was for a podcast called The Edge of Liberty. I did all that. I pulled the graphic all from the same line. I told it what I was going to do. I told it that I was like all of this stuff, because once you start that thread, you can build on it and drill down into it and change its eyesight as to what you're looking for. So it's you have to take the time to learn how to use it. Going around the clock, we're going to start at the top left, right for most people, left for me. Jersey Joe, sir, where can everyone find you?
Right here on SHR Media. All of our social medias every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch me on X at Jersey Joe Talks.
It's a pleasure having you, sir. Thank you so much for being with us. Going down to Rowdy Rick, because the senior man gets to leave last on his own terms. Rowdy Rick, go ahead, sir.
All right, so you can find me tomorrow and Friday doing the Rick Robinson Show from noon to 3. You can find me tomorrow night doing Jen and Rick 10 p.m. Eastern. You can find me Friday night doing He Said, She Said with Olivia Aggie-Reekin, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And you can find me doing the Juxtaposition show 10 p.m. Eastern. All of that, of course, on KLRN Radio. You can follow along with me at RowdyBig73. I also contribute to Twitchy.com, MisfitsPolitics.com, and TheLoftusParty.com. And the Loftus Party podcast I produce drops on Tuesdays. That's the bullet points, folks, and it's been a blast.
And he read that off Chat GTP. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate you being here tonight, Sarah.
I did not. I just say it every freaking day, 12 times a day.
See you, bud. And finally, BZ.
How does he do that? How does he keep track of everything?
I don't.
I have a hard enough time keeping track. I couldn't tell you what I had for dinner. I did get something very important out of this tonight.
What's that?
I may actually tomorrow morning go into the computer and look up Chat GPT and make a query. Up until tonight's show, and A, thanks for asking. B, I appreciate being here. But I actually got something out of this, and that's what I got out of it. I'm going to give it a chance.
Good.
I still kind of sort of feel like it's cheating.
It is.
But depending upon, and like Rick said, okay, that's a really good and valid point. I don't have a producer. You don't have a producer.
Nope.
He doesn't have a producer. We do all this shit by ourselves. So if we can find someone who is kind of a semi-researcher to help out
for you.
And when I look at the TV, which is on right over there, and I hear somebody say blah, 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 and I think, God, I'd like to have that on a video that I could show on the show. And then if I can more readily find that on, say, a Chat GPT, buddy, that works for me. I'd love to find that.
No, it is. It's great for consolidating information, and it's great even if you want to. And like I said, I've used Grok for this. I haven't tried it with Chat GPT. Once I have my show laid out how I want to before I go on the air, I'll upload it into Grok, all the information, and say bullet point this, separate it, and that way I'm not missing all my topics. And it's all on one screen. I can always click back to that one screen, get my next note, because we're commentators. We commentate about the things that we see and observe, right? We do it with a conservative point of view because that's who we are. But that doesn't mean that we hold every single quote, date, time, and everything in our head. I always hate when you're in an argument with somebody and you say something that's factually true. Oh, look, Mission Ready Men, Big E said that's always felt too busy. I'm going to start trying to learn how to use these tools more effectively. I hate when you're in an argument and you say something factual and somebody's like, well, when was that said? And it's like, dude, I've had it in debates and shows like that where it's like, I know I read it. I know it's accurate. But if I say, oh, it was on April 14th, 2020, they'd be like, nah, it was April 14th, 2019, dickhead. And that changes the argument, right? So to be able to keep all that information consolidated at a bullet point when you're when you have citations, or just like tonight with the Trump quote, right? I would have pulled that Trump quote separately.
I knew you would have, yes.
But I would have, in my show prep, I would have put that under my bullet points as a quote to read. And I would then upload it as part of my bullet points for my segment, if that makes sense. So I think it's great. Dang, 8:11 on KLRN for tonight's show. Thank you so very much for our friends over at KLRN. That is fantastic. Thank you, Ricky.
Nice.
So BZ, break it down, because I also gotta pimp out Big E. So you go first.
Okay. Thanks for having me here, and I will be on tomorrow night. I'm on Tuesday and Thursday nights at SHR and at KLRN. I'm on X at BZ's Saloon, BZS Saloon. And my show is tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central, and 11 p.m. Eastern. BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Little L, Libertarian. Big C, Conservatarian. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure, always, to have you. There he goes. And don't forget to check out every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon on the East Coast, right here on the SHR Media Network. You have Mission Ready Men with Big E, my good, dear, old friend, Make sure you check out his show. Hey, me, every Monday and Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 o'clock on the East Coast. This has been a great show. It was fun to do a special. I'm so glad the boys took it off the rail like we always do. That's part of the fun doing this. I'm apprehensively excited about AI. And like I said, the whole point of this for me was to get AI to work for me, to get out ahead of it, to not let it be doing things automatically and not know how to navigate it and infiltrate it, if you will. So I appreciate you guys sticking with us. We're going to do more on AI as time goes on. I want to keep kind of just bringing it out in fun things, not fun things. It intrigues me because I think in the future, AI is going to wrap around everything we touch for the most part when it comes to electronics. And I would rather have the information now and be prepared than trying to get caught up. My name's Sean. This is absolutely the Edge of Liberty. Thank you so much to the Facebook friend who just came in and said hello. Hello to you. Unfortunately, I have to say goodbye to you and everybody else. Good night. Good luck.